Jay Baba.
Jay.
Jay Baba, everybody. I'm Evie Lindeman. I'm the chair of Mayhair Archive Collective, and there's a couple of people on here. Let's see. Yeah, a few of us who are involved with that organization. And Jean is a former board member. Um, Jana does a lot of volunteering. Ashley's our administrative assistant, and Wilson has done quite a bit of work at the building and is currently launching a men's group. So I was really excited about today, and Marnie and Sevn and Ashley and I have been in conversation and in the photo world a bit this week and last week, just organizing what we were going to do today. So I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about both of them. I always think it's interesting all the paths all of us have taken to arrive here. And it always reminds me of like a confluence of streams and rivers and ocean. And I'm sometimes surprised by the things that people have done. So I'm going to start with Marnie. Marnie is currently the president of Beads on One String.
No, I'm not the president anymore.
Oh, you're not.
Sevn's the president.
Oh, Sevn, you
I'm the
lucky
vice
guy.
president. I'm the
You're
vice president. I was for 12 years, but
okay. All
Sevn's
right. Thank
now.
you. Thank you for that correction, actually. So Marnie grew up in Milwaukee. She attended high school there. She went to the University of Wisconsin, so I think she knows winter, but likes to forget it. She went to graduate school in counseling psychology, and when she was 30, she took a radical departure in geography and moved to Oregon, where she currently resides, except when she's traveling. Yeah, which she does quite a lot. So she grew up in the Episcopalian faith, and as I think so many of us maybe have found in various Christian paths, that her feeling was that there was just too much focus on sin. And so she became something of a seeker and really did counseling kind of work for many years. But really, I think her archetypal presence has to do with organizing groups. So she has done a lot of community work. And so, for example, she was on a commission, on a school board, a utility board, a women's collective. And in 1999, she met Dawn Stevens, and Dawn asked her if she would be willing to help organize a group. And this particular one was, if you can imagine organizing the details for a trip to India for a bunch of people. Anyway, that's part of what Marnie did. And she was the chair of the foundation for 12 years. And so during that time, the group created an organizational structure for the foundation. And there are other arms of it that Sevn is involved with. For example, a publishing arm called Companion Books, a grants and scholarship committee, and then an outreach committee. And we'll explore more of these things. So Marnie, anything I left out that seems important to you?
No, you did a wonderful job, Evie. And the only thing I would want to say is that when I met Don in 1999, then he started a young people's group, of which my late husband and I were the old people. And and during the years that Don would come to the United States uh, at least once or twice a year for this group to meet, and we meet in different places. And it was during that time that and Sevn, correct me if I'm wrong, but that he and Sevn got together, and Sevn became part of the young people's group. And then Sevn really was deeply involved in what was the prequel to Beads on One String. And so Don, being Don, he just brought people in all kinds of ways.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Okay, Sevn, hot seat for you now. So Sevn is the current president of Beads on One String. He grew up in Detroit, and if I got this right, there was a pond near his home, which became the site of many snow adventures. And he played ice hockey for a good number of years. Currently, just fast forward, he coaches his two daughters' soccer teams. So he also had 12 years of Catholic education. I was like, Sevn, you know what? We match each other year for year on that one, including, I think, 4 years in a Jesuit university. And so he has he currently actually has about 6 different roles in a number of different organizations. So he's a chair and founding member of Beads. He also is a chair of Rainbow Community Schools, where his daughters go to school. He's on the board at Mayhair Spiritual Center. He provides archival and technology support to the Trust in India. He's helped Australia and Avatar's Abode with their archives. And currently, I didn't know this, he's a board consultant for the Asheville Community Yoga School, where he also teaches yoga and meditation. So it seems like, Sevn, you might be in the service mode.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. When I get time outside of work, that's my focus.
Yeah. All right. So his involvement with beads includes the last 8 years or so of Don Stevens' life. He lived with Don part-time and accompanied him during his travels in Europe, the US, and in India. And during that time, Don made Sevn a director of companion books and companion enterprises, which you'll find out more about. And Sevn was the one who, there were 2 different stages of what became Beads on One String, and it became in 2010 a 501c3, which translated just means a nonprofit. So Mayhair Archive Collective is a 501c3, as is Beads on One String. So Sevn, anything you'd like to add?
I think that's a great summary, Evie. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Well, what I'd like to start with is, let's see, Ashley, if you can show our first slide. So this is a lovely photo from the Beads on One String website. You can see Don on the right, really young there. And I believe next to Don, to his left, it looks like Pendu. And next to him with the glasses just over Baba's shoulder, it looks like it's probably Bao Kulturi. If anybody has anything other than that, you can certainly correct me. So let's see the next slide. So I wanted to start with the mission statement, because I think a mission statement is always really at the core, at the heart of any organization. And kind of speaking as a person that has some leadership roles at MAC, sometimes it requires us to return to our mission statement when we get a little bit off course. So I'm going to read the mission statement. I'm going to ask all of you, just as I read this, maybe to close your eyes and take a couple breaths and see if you can just get the sense of the spirit of Beads. Beads on One String is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the exploration of the unity of all life, and whose abiding interest is in humanity's common endeavor to understand experience and creatively express the oneness that lies at the heart of all. This search is independent of existing traditions, yet actively appreciates and connects people from all religions, backgrounds, and cultures, sacred and secular. We intend, through education, pilgrimage, film and media, arts, sciences, and companionship, to invite opportunities to explore and experience this unity. So see if there's even one word or a catchphrase for you that sort of helped you to understand a little bit about the inherent heart of beads on one string? And see if you can carry that into our conversation today, because it really is a conversation, a discussion. And I see this as an opportunity for us to continue to experience companionship with one another as we focus on this Baba organization. So, Sevn and Marnie, is there anything that you would like to add here? Anything about the mission that maybe you find yourselves returning to?
Well, Sevn, do you want to say something?
Oh, go ahead, Marnie.
Okay. I think the key to me is the idea of inclusiveness and bringing people together. And also one of the founding parts of Beads on One String for me is the idea of companionship. So that sense of connectedness and shared exploration. And one of the values that we have is that we in the beads are learners, not knowers. And so we're here to learn together with and from our companions. And they may be from all kinds of traditions. The beads foundation is on Mayor Baba's words and using what he has taught us to bring people together in companionship as well as exploration.
Mm. Thank you for that, Marnie. Sevn, let's hear from you about this. What stands out for you? Because you have both been involved with this organization for a good number of years. And clearly, there's some kind of inner commitment from you that speaks to your own heart about your interest in really working on this.
Yeah, a couple pieces. I think this three ideas of approaching God, or it's used as oneness in this particular mission statement to be inclusive of everybody. So there's kind of that trying to allow a way for a kind of a culture of belonging for anybody to join and come kind of come in. And so kind of those three pieces of understanding, creating like opportunities, events for people to become more familiar with whatever form of expression oneness might be, have experiences for it. We found that getting together and having interfaith conferences was dry. If we just sit there and go through, the technicalities of different religions um, but really having some experience that is the heart of what really, when people think about their own faith, their own traditions, like the experiences they have are really what are some of the most powerful. Like a lot of us going to India, meeting the Mandali, these experiences we had sometimes are like more deeper than just some, particular philosophy or words. And then creative expression, like the ability to like actually take some of that experience and bring it back into our lives. So it's not just, a one-time event or pilgrimage, but like it becomes something that we can then integrate and become a part of our expression of who we are. So I think those are kind of three important pieces. And then the other thing is over the years, we've always thought of it like this idea of being explorative and experimental, meaning like, what are the possible ways that this can manifest? We have no idea. Like we were like pilgrimage worked really well, and we were doing that many years, and then we're like, well, what are all of the other possible ways? So we're constantly trying to like think in terms of exploring and experimenting with new forms of coming together and like exploring these themes.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I think that's can I just, I think that's
Yes,
a really
please.
great point, Sevn. And many of our events that we've planned, some of them have felt like just jumping off a cliff and just seeing if it works. And I would say, Sevn, wouldn't you say for the most part, I think they've worked really well. We've had maybe one that wasn't great, but I think it was an experiment.
Yeah.
And So I think that's a really good point, Sevn.
So I'm going to put you both on the spot for a second here. So based on what you both just said, I'll tell you what I hear in this. And I think I've heard this from so many people that Baba has, I think of it as Baba fishing us out of the cosmic soup, cleaning us up a little and then tossing us back in so we can try to figure out how do we do this thing. Um, so I wonder if you could each give an example of how your involvement with this has brought you some kind of richer inner experience about your own journey with Baba.
It's a beautiful question. You want to start, Sevn?
Yeah, I think, one thing that's coming to mind is, since seeing Alta here. So Alta, just remembering back to 2009, there's one of our pilgrimages in India. Um, it was quite grueling, a lot of chaos factors and just difficult physically because of the constant movement. And on top of that, I was working on a film production crew. But everybody felt it. Like, it was just, but um, so that wearing down of the body. Oh, Irma's here too. She's been through that as well in 2010.
Oh, that's
Wearing
great.
down of the bodily comfort, like of like planning an overly ambitious pilgrimage, because Don planned it and we haven't been quite as grueling since he was around, now that I think about it. But the wearing down, the grinding down of those surface layers, and
Mm.
what that does is it really opens up like the necessity to connect with your fellow pilgrims, your fellow devotees. And like when I think about Baba talking about the importance of establishing inner links with each other, that's the way lives on, is his inner links with each other. Um,
Mm,
that happens under those conditions and in a shared purpose of like just a higher devotional aspect. I really think that that aspect of companionship, that the pilgrimages are like an example of it, but it's happened in so many other ways and so many other events when you're really working on something that's difficult, that causes egos to flare up and come back down, that it really offers opportunities to kind of like connect with that Baba in somebody else, like just
mm,
a greater depth. And I think that's been really meaningful to me. It's been really transformative, of really just those individual connections with different people that have been involved, and especially, the board and all of the organizers of different events. Even like Lynn, um, and I organized an event here in Asheville years ago, and just we had this little meetup group, three of us, where we met every week, and we went into just a lot of depths of Baba's teachings and philosophies in order to organize that. And I think about that medium,
mm.
having that work has like been really like how I've kind of dealt deeper into kind of understanding Baba myself, and kind of how his bigger vision of beads on one string kind of manifests.
Mm, beautiful, Sevn. So, I'm thinking we're all experiencing a lot of grinding down in the present cultural moments. And it sounds like what you were able to do was in spite of the grinding down, or maybe not even in spite of it, you were able to connect more deeply with one another. So kind of shifting out of that cranky, angry place into a place of deeper connection is a beautiful way to think about part of what happened on that 2009 trip. Thank you. Marnie, you're up.
Well, for me, it's been the companionship element of Bees on One String that really resonates to my heart. And that's expressed in so many ways. When we first started the beads, we had to create it out of whole cloth. We had a 12-member board, and it was hard work. We had to develop our policies and procedures, our guidelines, how to interact with each other. And I found it to be an extremely rich experience, because all of that was based on our understanding and our love for Baba. And I feel that our love for Baba and Baba's love for us has informed all of our interactions with each other and our events. That doesn't mean that it's always been easy. And it's sometimes one of the things that I believe I value so much is differences of opinion. I think that enriches an organization. I think it's dangerous when everybody agrees. And so our differences have flowered, I think, through our companionship and our devotion to Mayor Baba, and that's been a very strong part of the ongoing strength of Beats on One String. And for me, it's been, I have experienced it as a very joyful experience. Because even the naughty times, the hard times, it makes you go deep in terms of, okay, what is Baba saying? What is he wanting here? So I have to say it's just been such a gift from Baba to be able to do this, to be involved in this organization.
You know, listening to you, Marnie, and the idea of kind of welcoming differences, I think is probably really at the heart of Baba's message to all of us, really. So can you say anything more about the strategy for being able to shift into that, both, you know, individually with all the people in your group and also more collectively as a body, as a group?
Are you asking that to me
Sure.
or to both of us?
Well, yeah.
Can you go a little? I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Okay. So, you know, you're talking about valuing differences, and I think organizations and individuals and relationships and families, you know, we often get stuck in feeling like we're right and having a hard time shifting out of that into something that's more understanding, listening better, appreciating the other. So what I'm asking is, it sounds like the group has been able to do this both individually and collectively, shifting from an I standpoint into a we, and the welcoming. It sounds like the welcoming of differences has been very key to your own kind of inner development.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. And that was in the very early stages of organizing the beads, we developed guidelines. And basically, the guidelines are based on listening, respect, compassion, I statements, all the things that we all know are the best ways to interact with others. And I think we've practiced that. Would you agree with that, Sevn? Is that your experience, that we've been pretty devoted to
Yeah.
that?
I think so. And I think when I'm thinking about the why we have been, I'm really thinking about Don Stevens' guidance with truing.
Mm.
And so Don Stevens kind of coined this term with his work with the intuition groups, various intuition groups that he had. And the idea was when working with intuition, Don was, a lot of people have the impression that, oh, an intuition is something that comes up from within and it's absolutely 100% true.
Mhm.
End of story. Don was not along those lines with his own personal intuitive work and the work that he did in the groups. It was very much that intuitions come up and then they get filtered through our individual coloring. So like sometimes they have a hard time making it expressing themselves without going through the filters of our sanskaras. And one of the benefits of working with a tight companionship group and with companions is they can offer opportunities to true your intuition. And that
Mhm.
truing's so valuable because let's say you always color your intuition or your 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 feelings, your ideas with, the color orange. And if you have somebody gently point out directly or indirectly, hey, you're putting orange on this again, then it becomes like an incredible tool to like know yourself when you're putting orange on your things that come up. Is this really intuition based on some inner guidance from my beloved, or is it like a little bit of mixture of him and me wanting to mold it into the way I want it to be for, more convenience? And I think
Mm,
this was a big theme in Don's groups, especially the London group and the Boston Intuition group as well. And I think we adopted that strongly because of the members that have been part of those groups and realized that, okay, when these things come up, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to um, welcome in truing and identifying perhaps the ways in which individually, we're coloring the situation for our own kind of personal tendencies. So
mm,
that word comes up a lot when the friction starts to come up, and by having that word come up, like rather than being like, oh, we have all this conflict that we need to deal with, oh, we have this opportunity for truing and we know that the harmony comes, when there's harmony, it's because we took the time to kind of go through those processes, which Marnie's always been great at, like of slowing us down and bringing us back to kind of like, I know we have this huge agenda, but we got to spend time to do that hard work because
mm,
embedded in doing that hard work of the interpersonal, like it actually ripples out and affects, the more tangible work we do.
mm. I love the word truing. That's absolutely a stunner.
Mhm.
Um, that's really, thank you both. That's really, really lovely. So, Sevn and Marnie, how about if we shift into some of the pilgrimage events? Are we ready to do that?
Sure.
Okay, so Ashley, you want to advance the slides? Okay, so Sevn, was this the trip where you also went to Avila?
No.
No, there was two Spain pilgrimages. One is in 2007, I think, where we went to Avila. This one was mostly in southern Spain.
Okay, so I don't have any data on the 2007 one, but 7 one, but Sevn, I wonder if you could tell us a bit of the story about finding this location where Baba had been in Avila.
Oh, in Avila. Oh, yes, that's an interesting. So I'm trying to remember, Danny, were you there? I was noticing Danny here too. Can't remember. But in 2007, so just let me start talking about pilgrimages by Don telling the story that when he would go to India often, Baba would have an itinerary waiting for him of sites that he wanted him to go visit. Um, and um, and several trips, and he would want like he was bringing his camera, so Baba would want him to take different film footages of these different places. And it's a longer story, but Don felt that it was significant because after Baba passed away, Erich had saw some of the footage that Don had taken of all these various spots in India, especially. And Erich said to Don, Don, one thing that's shocking about all these places is these are places that Baba visited several times, and often places he would go and meditate and set us up as guard. And he put an incredible amount of time into a lot of these places. And I'd never noticed it before, but seeing them summarized in your videos really, emphasize that. And Don kind of internalized that as that Baba put kind of, I think the way Don put it, like he put his avataric energy, or there was his presence is very um, palpable in some of these locations. So that kind of inspired this idea of like, well, Baba was pointing out something to us. Let's revisit where he was sending people. And India, it was very obvious. And then also there was the places in Europe that Baba visited. So we're like, whoa, what about these places as well? And then, the early groups were even meeting to say, well, are there places outside of where Baba even visited that he talked about, or that also follow some kind of like energetic or intuitive or some kind of devotional power that is representative of kind of the taste he gave us with the sites he pointed out. So a lot of the pilgrimage work has been mulling over those kind of ideas of what's a sacred site, what does it mean to visit. Um, and getting back to your in 2007, I think was one of the first kind of intentional pilgrimages. It was either 2007 or six. I can't remember.
I
Uh,
think it was six. I think it
Six.
was
You're
six.
right. It was
Yeah.
2006. Was um was one of the kind of an intentional thing. Let's go to all these spots in Italy, France, Spain, and a few. I think we no, we didn't UK. And visit them. And one of them was Avila, which Baba had been to. And when going to them, we would get all the written diaries we could find out for each site. And in
Mm,
Avila, Herbert Davy had like a pretty extensive write-up of what they did. And included in that um, was an interesting hike that Baba took with the whole group out beyond the gates of the city, down a road towards a big hill, along a stone wall, with in between a tunnel of trees, and arriving at these incredible rock formations where Baba said this is where he had spent um, a tremendous time in deep meditation in a previous incarnation or something. Interesting comments. So we're like, wow, that sounds, where is this? And so um, Rafael Viafani from Mexico contacted a taxi driver or driver in Avila and said, hey, could you do this? Could we hire you to try to find this spot for us? So when we get there, you can like, take us out there. And so the guy was very willing. And so he spent like a couple weeks talking to people, driving around Avila, him and his wife. And finally, when we got there, like, we think we found it. Like, they were waiting for us at the hotel when we walked in. They were so excited. Like they met, like, he only spoke Spanish, and him and Raphael were talking in like, just this excitement. And we're like, okay, we're gonna do it tomorrow. And he's like, no, no, you should do it. You should go right away. And so I think later
mhm.
that day, and he was like, we can't drive there. We have to walk. It was like there wasn't roads. So he walked us out. We went 2 days in a row, but the first group, they were so excited, walked us out. And it was this beautiful, like, just opening with these very strange rock formations. They look a lot like the rocks in Hyderabad, if any of y'all have been there. Just like big boulders, like kind of precariously balanced on other smaller rocks. And it was just fantastic and really incredible energetic sense. And so beautiful experience being there. And then we got back to the hotel and Raphael was trying to pay the driver and say, hey, thank you. Here's what we agreed on, and he's like, no, no, we can't take any money. This has been one of the most incredible like searches, and we feel something very powerful. And we looked up and read some of the Lord Mayor online and about Mayor Baba, and like they felt a real connection with Baba through this like exploring and trying to find this place in Avila. And so it was interesting that, kind of was kind of said to us like, yes, there is some kind of presence or power in these places that
Mm,
just by that experience of somebody that is completely um, unrelated to us or Baba at that time.
mm. What a
Mm.
beautiful story.
Mhm.
All right, thank you for that. So let's talk about the Spain seminar in 2013. Both of you, either of you, what would you like to say?
Well, it was a remarkable gathering, primarily of Meher Baba lovers. We gathered in a hill resort outside of Malaga, and the focus was exploring that a magical time in Spanish history when the Moors were in charge of Spain, but there was a peaceful relationship between Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And it was a golden age for spiritual, what would you say, well, how would I say it? Spiritual, they weren't connected to each other, but accepting of each other's presence. And it was very beautiful. So this Spanish seminar was focused on exploring that. And we had a Jewish rabbi who talked to us. And he was from London, I think. Is that right, Sevn? I think he was from London.
Yeah.
There was a woman who was a Christian minister. She also was from England. And then the organizers had found a wonderful man, Ignacio Bejar, who was Spanish and a Sufi and a musician. And so he was, so we had these conversations and then interactions with each other in response to the stories and the experiences that these various presenters offered to us.
Sevn,
And
do
then-
you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so southern Spain, Andalusia is sort of the considered the kind of the golden age of Islamic mysticism in a lot of ways. And that's where people like Ibn Arabi, who Baba quotes quite a bit. That's where he's from, and that would have been. And actually, Ignacio was very much a follower of Ibn Arabi. That's kind of that whole. So there was very much that was, there was a strong connection of that as well there. And yeah, I just remember we had this, there was a beautiful Sufi concert in this little village, on the side of a cliff, where all the towns are kind of like built into the side of the mountain, and you have to kind of walk through the town. And there was a church that used to be a mosque, that used to be a church, that used to be a mosque, that it was held in, like, because in this area there with the Crusades, there was this constant like, the Muslims taking over the Christian church and then back and forth, back and forth. But lovely Sufi concert, just one of the most incredible concerts. I remember it significantly because my wife was pregnant with our first child, and we're listening to this concert, and Asha was kicking, just moving around, dancing, and I could feel her like in Huma's tummy, and it was just like, wow, it was just a really incredible, beautiful concert, just moving. And then after the concert, the mayor of the city organized a dinner for all of the members of the group. So you walk through the little town, and then there's this huge outdoor like dinner area set up in the middle of town. And several people from the village came and helped serve, and it was just so sweet. They knew what we were doing, and they had it was like, without, there was a little bit of the language barrier. There was some of us that were better communicating some of our purpose, but they just felt kind of the intention of the group, what it was for, and just really it was so welcoming. And yeah, it's quite a beautiful event from that perspective.
It truly was. It was just magical, that dinner out on this terrace, which was the culmination of having visited some of these sites during the day. One of them being the Mezquita in Cordoba, which is, and as Sevn was describing, the back and forth between the Muslim and the church, the mosque and the church. The cathedral in Cordoba is built on a Roman temple, which was an Islamic mosque, which is now a Catholic cathedral. And you can see all of that within this remarkable, beautiful building. So it was just layer upon layer upon layer of experiencing the possibilities of that golden age.
That is lovely. Thank you. So let's move on. Let's see what else we have to share. Okay, so this is 2013, and the visit to the Alhambra in Granada.
That was all part of that day trip that we took.
Okay.
And it's interesting, Sevn, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. We went to the Alhambra after we went to the mosque, the church in Cordoba, which had all these layers. It was very beautiful, I thought. And then we went to the Alhambra, which was exquisite. I don't know if any of you have been there. I had never been there before, and I was just amazed at how beautiful it is.
Mhm.
But it had a totally different feeling. It did not
Mhm.
have that mystical, spiritual feeling. It was very worldly, very beautiful, no question. But it was a stark contrast compared to a place that has all that mystical value behind it. What did you think
Yeah,
about
if I recall, that was the experience of a lot of the pilgrims. Again, that's the kind of the experimental aspect of
Mhm.
the Alhambra is like, a must visit for any pilgrimage in southern Spain, especially, no matter what tradition. But yeah, just awe-inspiring from the level of artistry and craftsmanship is just phenomenal. I've never seen any place like it. But yes, having visited some of the other places and feeling, wow, there's a difference. Like there's a difference in energy here that isn't the same as some of these other sites. It was interesting to recognize that.
It was.
If I recall the Alhambra, I think they had sections of architecture where they had the harems.
Mm.
And I don't know if you remember that part, but so that was a big part of the culture then. And I also recall that in order to manage this as a structure in the hierarchy of leadership, there were also a significant number of eunuchs who were trusted and not suspected of. So there was a big separation between the genders, and I think that was part of the energy of the place.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It stood out to me. They had these elaborate marble screens, which were just exquisitely beautiful, but there was no penetrating those boundaries. It
No.
was a significant part of that culture, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm. I agree.
So let's go on to the next slide because this is also about Spain. So this is Granada, a view of the city. And let's go one more. Okay, so this is I thought this was a really interesting photo because this was also a part of 2013, and it looks like there's a good number of French pilgrims who joined you. I don't know if this was the whole pilgrimage or for this particular day or what your connections were with this particular group.
Well, this particular group was a French group led by Marc Molinari, who's in the kind of the pink shirt on the right. And
Uh-huh.
he was leading this group to sacred sites connected to Baba, I think, in southern France. And
Hmm.
it just happened that we coordinated on the same day to have some time together. And so they came
Oh, wow.
and we connected at the Alhambra, but we didn't connect in other parts of that particular pilgrimage.
Okay, so there was an intersection of pilgrimage groups.
Yeah, and Mark was also a part of some of the early pilgrimages, like the one in 2006 and the early India pilgrimage. So he was so, as you know, Don Stevens was one of the central
I
kind of
was,
organizers. Oh, one of the central organizers of events and Baba groups in Europe. So the French group in both Paris and Marseille had big Baba groups.
Hmm.
At the time that Don was alive in Brittany as well. And so a lot of those groups also or Mark organized different pilgrimages for them as well.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And he still does. He's very active in terms
Yeah.
of activities.
Where does he reside?
Marseille.
Ah, okay. All right. Okay, well, we're going to fast forward here. So the France seminar in 2018, this one was of particular interest to me because of the theme about Mayor Baba's new life. And do you want to talk about this slide? Did you start in Amiens?
No, we started in a small town outside of Amiens. The visit to Amiens was our pilgrimage day. And the seminar that we had in France was focused on Baba's new life. And excuse me. People came together. There were about, what would you say, about 25 of us who gathered. And excuse me, we spent 2.5 days studying Baba's Song of the New Life. And one of the experiences we had was each participant took a line of the song, and then we worked with somebody as a pair to explore what the meaning of that line is to us, and then shared it with the rest of the group. And so it was, that's what stands out for me in my memory of that particular seminar. Do you remember, what else do you remember of it, Sevn?
Yeah, this a couple of gatherings we tried to do it, but getting people together and actually having it as a retreat format where all the attendees like, have all the meals with each other, sleep together, and I think that's a really powerful format. We did something similar in Nashville. It's so I think that stood out, like just that. I think being together closely, eating meals together, and this is very French, like the French meetings, the Baba meetings in Paris, I quickly realized the Baba talk was, just half as important as the meal together, which there would also be Baba part. But that was like the care for, everybody getting together and sharing a meal was such a huge part of their meetings in the London group too. And I think some of those little things came across in this seminar of these other ways of how important just, breaking bread with each other is. And so that's kind of what one thing that stands out for this.
Yeah, it was a real exploration of companionship. That was one of the focuses of this particular seminar. And I think that what you described, Sevn, is a perfect example of how companionship was brought together in the various layers of the event.
Mm.
Yeah. You all may know Renata Moritz from Germany. She was sharing her interpretation of the line that she was studying, and Wayne Smith next to her.
So it's interesting. It sounds from what you described that each person took a different line from the new life, but then they had a companion that they talked with around the meaning of that line for them. Is that how that went?
Exactly. Exactly.
And then shared back to the larger group.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
So,
It was
wow.
amazing. The organizers had this on the wall, a huge sheet of paper with the lines of the new life, and I mean of the song of the new life. And it was very powerful to see it in that large format hanging on the wall.
Beautiful.
I would say that's when Sevn, I'm curious what you think about this as well, but I would say that's one of the things about the Bees on One String events is there are these little things that you don't realize are going to have an impact. And something as simple as seeing that large format of the Song of the New Life on the wall in the room where we would go and interact with each other throughout the day was so powerful in terms of kind of anchoring it in one's mind.
Okay. let's move forward 1 year. And here we have an event a year later in 2019 in Duxbury, Massachusetts. So
Yes.
what would you like to say about that?
Well, this is our wonderful Sufi who was in Spain with us that
Mm,
the organizers found. And this is Ignacio. And he's been to a couple of our seminars, and we brought him over from Spain to be involved in our 2019 event in Massachusetts, the focus of which was intuition, sacred and secular. And yeah, he's just a wonderful man.
Yeah, so this
okay.
yeah, this
Yeah.
event, I think this one we in particular we explored intuition through Sufism, and Ignacio, I believe, led a more experiential sound
Mm,
healing
mm,
aspect. And all most of our events have like a musical performance arts component
Hmm.
to it always. Um, and um, and then Norshawan gave a great kind of presentation of Baba, and then the Boston head of the Boston Vedanta Society,
that's right.
Swami Chagananda,
Yes. Yeah.
um, also gave a wonderful talk.
Gananda.
Was it
Swami Gananda.
Chagananda? Thank you. And yeah, there was a lot of it was great because their community came too. So there was breakout groups with
Mhm.
the Vedanta Center community. So there was a lot of kind of interaction and overlap with them as well.
Mhm.
So I think that was one of the kind of there was definitely kind of a focus on Vedanta, in particular, kind of in how they kind of view this aspect of intuition as well,
Hmm.
in this particular seminar.
Lovely. Okay, what we're going to do now, just so everybody can follow what we're doing, we're going to take a little departure from pilgrimage and we're going to talk some about this major arm of Beads on One String that Sevn manages, and it's called Companion Books. So, Sevn, what would you like to say about it?
Yeah, so these are the English books. So Don, of course, published, a number of books during his lifetime. Listen Humanity is obviously one of, a huge one, but also um, over the years, Don went into just really delved deep into those little clues and things that Baba gave him over the years. Especially, he would say the things that Baba repeated to him 3 times. There was all these
Hmm.
things, and he would take special note and laboriously go into like one phrase. Even like Baba's gift of intuition, that was just a theme throughout Baba's life, but also different aspects of his word, Mir Baba's words, actually working with his words, um, and several other things. Um, and I think just as important is that after Don had worked with Baba publishing Discourses and God Speaks, and I think even Listen Humanity, um, Don was then living in Europe. Um, Baba wanted Don to oversee the translation of his major works into the European languages. Um,
Ah,
so this was an important part of Companion Books' work over the years. Companion Books was, started in the 70s or earlier, 70s or 80s, probably the 70s, and Don worked with, the French, Spanish, Italian, German groups. Um, and various individuals for those translations. Don was also a huge part of the Indian translations because, like God Speaks got published in English. It took, 30, 40 years to get it published in Hindi. So that was a
wow.
big endeavor, like getting, all the books translated into Indian languages. So companion books currently um, tries to maintain those. So like recent publications, we've new translation of the discourses in Spanish has went out. We published God Speaks in Italian last year.
Yeah.
Tales of the New Life in French. Um, and I know next is Discourses in Italian. There's going to be another translation of God Speaks in Spanish coming up on the line. And and interestingly enough, just because I find it interesting, our best sellers right now are German
Mm.
discourses, and German God Speaks sells pretty well too, but it's an expensive hardcover book. But it like comparatively, for some reason over the last few years, those have been really big sellers in Germany. I don't know why, but it's just fun.
Mhm.
That's so interesting, Sevn. I wonder, I've been involved in translational work in academic settings, and it's very particular, and you have to be really careful about your approach. So, how was that managed when something was translated, let's say from English into Spanish or German or Italian? How how was that accomplished in order to be as true as possible to the original?
Yeah, so through a lot of arguments and complications, but um, yeah, it's sensitive. Like people are very attached to their translations. Like, so you can
Yeah.
have a translator on board and be like, here it is, and be like, oh, wait, this needs to be shifted. I don't think it's like, what? No, that's it. Like, so there was a lot of that. Um, and a lot of it went well. I will say, the German publications were very special because it was the only one that a Baba Lover didn't do.
Oh,
But
interesting.
it was a Zen Buddhist monk, Stefan
Mm.
Schumacher, whose father owns the largest German publisher of esoteric literature. He also translated the Tibetan Book of the Dead and a couple other Sanskrit texts, but he was a
Wow.
phenomenal professional translator. He
Mm.
understood all of the language through his background in Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, and Hinduism. He understand the Sanskrit that was underlying in the Vedantic philosophy underlying Baba, and he did phenomenal job. That was the most seamless and one of the easiest
Mm.
translation processes that he did discourses in God Speaks in German. Um, for Spanish, different. We had to redo them because like there was so much. Don was trying to stay true to a certain style of Castilian Spanish, and I think the initial translators had their own colloquialisms in their particular culture that they grew up in. So with that, the most recent translation of discourses went back to a group in Mexico City
Mm.
with Rafael Villafañe, Minako Mori, who's a Japanese American living in Mexico for most of her life. So, fluent in three or four different languages, and there's a few other people in that group. And that particular group work was able to take the old translations, work out some of that, and everybody's like, wow, this is what, Simon Reese, who's in charge of translations for the Trust in India, said this is the best Baba translation that's ever been done. So
Mm.
it's interesting that was like done in a group setting, a collaborative group, rather than giving it to one person and then having them check back, 2 years
Mm.
later with their translation. They started with that collaboration and truing right off the bat. So
Mm.
it's hard to find that right um, conglomeration of people, but I think that in the future seems like a really great way to go about translations.
Wow, that's wonderful. All right, we're going to move along here, and eventually we'll open the floor to people for comments and questions. So if we could move to the Don Stevens Scholarship, here's another interesting arm of Beads on One String.
Yes, I would say that's one of our most important, well, it's all important, but I would say grants and scholarships is one of our more visible uh, activities. And they are given to people who are pursuing spiritual endeavors. Um, we have these Donnie Stevens scholarship for people whose lives are focused on spiritual life. many of them. And we also have connection grants for people who have projects and support them. One of the projects that we've supported is Kathy Riley, who recorded African American women singing old slave spiritual songs, and they are just a rich heritage from African American life. And she was able to record some of these very elderly women singing the songs. And we gave her a grant now to get those transcribed into a format where that can be shared with other people. So there are all kinds of grants and scholarships that we offer. Another kind is a larger grant for people with major projects. We have made a grant to Beloved Archives for Narshawan to put together a film on the work that he's done through Beloved Archives. We also gave a grant to a fellow named TJ Ravenwolf, who is a Athabascan Native American, to
So
develop.
hold on just a second. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is TJ. To do a film of the Red Road, which is a spiritual value system for Native Americans, and connected also to the Sundance ceremony. So those are the kinds of grants and scholarships that we offer, which are kind of all over, all different kinds of endeavors that people are involved with, but always with that spiritual perspective.
So I had the opportunity a little earlier this morning to read some things about TJ Ravenwolf, and there's a beautiful video that I think was a joint project with you all in his talking about the Lakota Native tradition and what's called the Red Road. And I recommend everybody looking at that video. It was stunning to me.
Yeah, that was his part of his proposal that he gave to us to receive a significant grant for us, which is, I think we gave him Sevn, do you remember exactly? I think it was $10,000 that we gave him for the film.
Yeah. And one thing interesting about TJ is, so then so we came into contact with him through the grant. Linda had other connections, and now, like, then the next year or 2 years later, we had an event in Oregon that had brought in some of these themes that he was of the Red Road, and at a national park. It was an incredible event, and he came and led several sessions. Did some kind of ceremonies with us. So it was interesting. Our connection through the grant then led to us, having an event of bringing group around him, and then even continuing nowadays with Linda and TJ talk on the phone all the time and have, they still have their connection. So it was kind of deeper than this kind of just kind of, yeah, creating network and companionship with these people from different walks of life.
Okay, so Ashley, I think you can stop the PowerPoint, and let me just, we've covered quite a lot of ground very, very rapidly, Marnie and Sevn, and I just wonder, as we kind of summarize and move forward with our group today, any other thoughts that you have about the sort of distillation of love and wisdom that I think has been maybe part of both of your experience with your involvement with beads and, Don's leadership early on?
It's a good question. Do you want to share that, Sevn? And I need to think about it for a minute. It's a really, really good question, Evie.
Thank you. I sprung that one on you, I have to confess.
I know I have to, one of our board members, Renata, always insists that we ponder rather than just respond. And I think it's such a wonderful way to think about something. And so your question, I have to ponder on that one.
Yeah, sometimes you have to sit in the silence, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
listen inwardly. But it's such a unique organization, and that was really part of my interest in having Mac host this today. So Sevn, your distillations, if you could speak about it.
Yeah, no, I think one thing that stands out is how Baba is more than this historical figure that we can attribute to these books and these words and this like timeline of life and action. Baba really, or Don Stevens really epitomized that for me about the living Baba that is you're ever discovering how that agent of God that's working in the world and ever discovering how it wasn't this static set of teachings, from God speaks, but that, oh, this one phrase in God speaks is this whole dynamic, morphing concept that's constantly changing inside you as you interface the world dynamically. Um, and
Mm.
Don was very experimental with that. And, so much so that, people were like, he got there's a lot of controversy around his interpretations of things, but, and he sometimes got it wrong. But that him getting it wrong and seeing his experimentation and kind of willingness to take risks and
Mm.
like look into kind of the newness, what hasn't been discovered about Baba, what hasn't been discovered that he never even said. Like, I find that really interesting. And I feel like that spirit kind of lives on with Beads on One String. Largely, it's half composed or more than half composed of people that have been in his, European Baba group. So a lot of the people that continue to support and are on the board have all been a part of his groups. And so they bring that into that. So I feel that there's a quote I can't remember of Baba, the taking bold experiments with life. And I feel like
Mhm.
I feel like Beats is trying to, there's space for that. There's space to kind of look at all of these possibilities.
Mm.
Mm. I love
Mm.
what you said, Sevn, this idea about the living Baba.
Mm.
And Marnie, I want to hear from you too, but I'd also like to just challenge the group with this personal internal question, and that is based on the sharing that Marnie and Sevn have done today, in your own risk-taking with Baba, and sometimes these things are extremely private. I wonder if each of us could imagine after this session is over today, and really the point of these sessions is what? To open our hearts, to help us build companionship, to deepen our internal relationship and links with Baba. So I wonder what it might be for each of us that we could do. And I always remember, Baba's saying this path is not for the faint-hearted. So
Mm.
none of us here, even if we might feel faint-hearted at different times, we are not that. We are cut of a different cloth. And I think it's a lovely idea to think about how we might bring that much more directly and in an active way in the present into our personal lives. And I'm going to do just a little personal share as we hear from Marnie. I attended a crafting session last night, and the invitation was to create a Victorian Valentine.
Mm.
So my Valentine had a little envelope that I decorated this
Mm.
way. One side had a red vine, and the other side had a green vine, just to entertain the idea of paradox and integration. And this was the outcome.
Mm.
So you can't really see this, but inside that little teeny square in the center is a beautiful purple little sparkling dot. And to me, my imagery and intuition come to me when I make art. And so now I have this lovely little way for me to help remember the thing that I'm challenging all of us to do today. Okay, Marnie, over to you, your distillation.
Oh, Evie, I love your Valentine. That's so
Thank
beautiful.
you. Yeah.
Well, I think Sevn mentioned Don in terms of creativity. And one of the things I remember Don saying that his time with Baba, it was always fresh. There was never anything stagnant or old with Baba. It was always fresh and new. And I would say that Don's mindset and that model has definitely infused Beads on One String. And we are always trying and seeking to develop activities that are something new, that bring us individually on the board, but all people who attend, that we go deeper into our spiritual life and find that creative moment where we understand something a little better, just kind of that little aha. And so for me, it has absolutely been the case that the entire time that I've been with Beads, it has been one of going deeper and deeper and deeper into understanding and practicing what Baba teaches us, how to be in the world. And I think that's one of the reasons I value the companionship with our board members and then with others who have come to some of our events, that there's this space where we can be open and receptive to our own internal process and that of others. And that feels to me like the most important thing that we can do as Beads, which is really Baba's work. I feel like it truly is Baba's work that he's given us.
Thank you, Marnie. So I just kind of want to put a little string around all these beads, and that is just to go back to this idea that Sevn raised earlier regarding the pilgrimages, and that is, and I think this is true in our lives with Baba, the only reason we take the hard road is because there is something incredibly powerful that happened for each of us, or we wouldn't be here today. And for me, the word that comes up is the word, it has to be lived and moved in, and it's experiential in nature. And that's really what I'm hearing from both of you, that it is, as Sevn said, it's a living something. It's not a bunch of words and we have a bunch of books and then it's all frozen into form. It is moving daily, I think, through all of us as we learn to pay closer attention and, not filter so much through our orange filter. But maybe we have a prism of colors and we can see much more than we really thought that we could. So what I'd like to do is just open the floor and for people to, and just inviting people into the group, and anything that, any questions that you might have as Sevn or Marnie, or thoughts and reflections about what they've shared today and how this might matter to you. So if you are one of those people that would like to share something, what I would suggest is you maybe just give me a visual hand like this, and then it'll be easier for me to spot you. Okay, so Cheryl, you'd like to share something?
Yeah, this has been fantastic for me. I'd like to know two things I'd like to say. The first is a question. Did anybody take a photo of Baba's New Life prayer that was huge and hung on the wall? Is there any photographic representation that you could post or put up today? I'd love to see that, where it hung, how it hung, just the whole room with that there in the room. That's the request. And well, there's a second.
Hold on, Cheryl. Let's pause for that and see what Sevn and Marnie want to say about your question.
I have to look back through the photos. I'm not sure.
I do not have a photograph of that. I know. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Great. So maybe that's something you could share with the group.
Sure.
Yeah.
And concomitant with that, you were is to see more photos. I don't know if someone on the trip was there with a camera. That's very, for me, when I used to do some photography for myself, it was very distracting. I realized to be somewhere that I was deeply invested emotionally in whatever other way, to be in an atmosphere, and then to be photographing, seeing things in terms of how it would look in my mind's eye through the lens. So I stopped doing photography. But if you could post at some point an addendum to this meeting of more photographs of where you went in Spain and in Europe, would be wonderful. The second part of what I want to say is, so just that's out there, and is we talked about truing, and you all have had the opportunity in your smaller groups with beads to true with each other, or beads with Don's intuition. Could you, Marnie and Sven, and anybody else who would like to do it, who's been has become familiarized with that process, to offer an online Zoom for some of us who have never done this, to participate, with also the ability to learn how is it done, and being part of it, and watching, even if I weren't part of it, watching would incredibly help me and probably a bunch of others. So that's my request, to offer on Zoom a truing seminars.
Cheryl, I can't tell you, you've taken the words right out of my mouth. In fact, when we were talking, I made a note. My job right now with the beads is the companionship committee, which is to help organize events. And I made a note, have a truing workshop. So,
Oh, wonderful.
so thank you for supporting that. And we'll work on it. And I will let you know as we figure out the format. So thank you.
Yeah.
Let me also recommend the word, let's see, Mayor Baba's Word and His Three Bridges. So this is one of the publications from Beads, and it's a very meandering, interesting narrative of how Don ran some of these groups. And Sevn and Marnie, I don't know if you think this would be an interesting way to try to understand a little bit of it from a reading perspective or not, but it occurs to me that it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think
Sevn, kind of asking you whether you think that's
Yeah,
so
there's
or not.
that book has a little bit, and the Inner Path and the New Life has also maybe a little bit more extensive treatment of it.
Yeah, but I have to tell you, being actively involved, and you've numerous times used that word actively and active, is very different for me than reading something.
Mhm.
So I
Yes, that's
translate it into my behavior. And recently, I just want to comment that Sven led a workshop. I can't tell you right now what the focus was, but what was amazing, afterwards, we broke into smaller groups, and the group that I was in was totally on the center. This was all on Mayher Center here in Myrtle Beach. And hearing how someone got to what they were saying blew my mind, because sometimes we'll have an assumption, our own assumption is put on, how did that person make that statement? But when you hear them explaining how they got to being more with Baba, it was just mind blowing. I went, I never thought of that. That was that person's process. It was phenomenally eye-opening and heart-opening for me, and energetically opening is really the best word I would want to use for it.
That's great. Cheryl, thank you so much for sharing. And what I'd like to do is just open the floor to anybody else that wants to raise their hand and make a comment or ask a question. Let's see. Looks like Lynn Pace is going to unmute and say something to us. And Wilson, you're next after her. I see you waving at me.
I just want to thank you all, because I think this has been very enlightening, interesting. And, Asheville is always looking for what kind of events are we going to do. And I really loved the New Life work that you all did. And I'm wondering, I mean, I may be in touch with you, Sevn or Marnie, to kind of talk about that a little bit more, because I think that would be a wonderful opportunity for Asheville to do something. Also, I am I think I've talked to you both. My work has been with setting up and training care teams, and we have a Baba Care team that has gone now for a number of years. Um, and it always was like beads on one string to me because I used to work with all the faith communities here. And I'm struggling a lot with that right now. So I may want to talk with one of you and just to be able to reflect from that Baba place. So I thank you for what you've offered today.
That's
That's
good. Thank you, Lynn. Okay, Wilson, you're up, and then Michal, I see your hand too. So I'll get to you after Wilson shares.
I just want to say I always love being in groups, and for the last couple years, I've been doing some pilgrimages, actual pilgrimages where I've used my body to walk step by step, and I have ended up in Assisi for the last 3 years, and this is the 800th anniversary of St. Francis's death. He died on October 4th, 1226. So it's kind of a biggie. But I'm also interested in maybe the beads on one string, doing these pilgrimages to the four saints, that places where these saints were, Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint Francis, Saint Catherine of Siena, and the guy I can't ever remember that had
Was it
such a
St.
big mind.
Augustine?
Saint Augustine, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, these types of pilgrimages where it involves the body and probably some exhaustion and difficulties, and also the heart is as much as we possibly can without just gathering information, but maybe poetry or whatever as a possible venue for doing a pilgrimage that's using these saints. I'm so into the saints right now that it's just amazing. But anyway, that's my
Great. Thank you,
spiel.
Wilson. So let me just say, beats on one string again. It looks like the theme so far of the comments have been about generating a space for new things to emerge that have to do with this idea of the living Baba
Mhm. Yeah.
and not the frozen in time stuff that'll come later. But now we have an open field here. Let's see, Michal, would you like to unmute? There you go.
Ache Baba, everyone.
Baba.
Thank you very much for this, Evie and Marnie and Sven. It has been and Don Stevens. It's been very interesting because it has a way of opening Baba, not making him, not closing on him, and how he is conceptualized by whatever group that was with him and led a certain way. And I see that I see Baba as actually opening up all faucets in the world, all faucets, not only all religions, but all ways of being and connecting to God and to our Godhood and to our togetherness with the Godhood. And whether they know of Baba or don't know of Baba, because Baba as the avatar is the one who actually opened up this whole thing, this whole scene that we are seeing around us. Not only the old way of knowing Baba through past incarnations and past ways, but also all the new ways. So this is one thing that I see Don Stephen has done here by going in a way out of the common Baba way of perceiving Baba and how to be in his companionship. So it's very, very moving. And the deepness of the work that you have been describing here is very special, very, very special. The way that he put you in companionship and in chewing is very, very beautiful. And what you also stress is just spending time together, sleeping together, eating together, roughing it together, and chewing it with each other, and being open to so many different ideas, different ways of approaching what each one of us sees our life with Baba is. So it was very refreshing, very admirable. And I want to add this aspect of not only looking on religions, on the religions that we know, not only on these beads, but on all the ways that Baba has opened up to approach the divine. And so being away in my country from all the Baba world or the Baba ways of doing things made it very easy to look upon all these things. But I do feel I do feel that sometimes, I'm not so talking on the same page with the Baba lovers because of that. Jai Baba to your work. Jai Baba to Don Stevens. His
Thank you,
work was
Michal,
wonderful.
and thanks for coming today from Israel. I'm always amazed that you show up. So,
you.
shalom.
Jai Baba.
Okay, we have a little more time. Who else would like to comment or ask? Irma.
Yes. Hello, Marnie. It's lovely to see you again.
Yes, it's lovely to see you too.
Okay. There was something that you said, and then Kevin, not, I'm sorry, Sevn, then you said it in slightly different words, but Marnie, you said that something about jumping off the cliff. Right?
Right.
And for some long while now, I have been aware that Baba, and I'm going to jump off a cliff right now and say this. Baba loves it when we jump off a cliff. Why? Because it's easy for him to guide us. We don't have all the regular stuff pulling at us. We have taken a huge chance, and he is the one who then takes us where he wants us to go.
Oh, Irma, I love that. Because I hadn't thought of it quite like that, but you're right. When you jump off the cliff, there's no path.
Yeah.
And Baba just guides you, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Irma. Let's see. Looks like Linda and then Betty. Linda?
Jai Baba, everyone. I'm just so happy that this is happening. I
Oh,
got involved with the Beats on One String through Marnie's invitation to come and be the scribe for their annual general meeting. I think that was 2017. And then after a couple of years of doing that, they asked me to apply for being a board member. And I did. I think I was the first one inducted into Beats on One String that Don did not appoint. I had only met Don a couple of times at his workshops, Doorbell to Forgiveness, and let's see, what was the other one? His Three Bridges workshops. Anyway, so it has been a magical ride, but I came in later and all the hard work of creating the foundation was pretty much in place. We were still working on our what do you call them, Marnie? The aspects of that you have to create for the nonprofit, but also to guide us in how we're going.
The guidelines are
Yeah,
interactive
no, not the
guidelines.
guidelines, the rules.
Policies and
Oh,
procedures.
policies and
Thank you.
procedures.
Policies and procedures.
Yeah.
I'm so not a policies and procedures person. But Anyway, I mean, I'm thinking about the evolution. At one time, early when I was involved, we were still wondering, well, whether we were a Baba group. And McAuley and several others spoke to that, just that that desire to be inclusive, to be experimental and experiential too. So we didn't want to limit ourselves in any way. And interestingly enough, that kind of made a few people mad, especially in the Northwest. They're not Baba enough. It's like, no, I don't want to be involved in them. They're not Baba enough. And so to sort of bear up under all the external impressions and continually come home to the mission, which is what intrigued me. And also, I felt so compelled towards the mission statement and just the energy that went into creating a vision. So I wanted to say too that some of the most important work that I've been involved in, I'm the secretary of Beads Foundation, which is a wonderful process of, I still do the scribing, and it also lets me take a little bit of a back seat to everything that's going on. So I absorb and then distill in the minutes of the meetings, for instance. But two of the things that I wanted to say are the two study groups that we are involved in, that I'm involved with, that are sponsored by Beads right now. One of them will culminate in the pilgrimage to Northern Ireland in May. And that invitation is on our website, by the way. But a study group that we started in May of 2025, Marnie and our friend Jane, who used to be on the board for many years, lives in England. They co-facilitate, but it's all facilitated by the members. It's called Conflict, Forgiveness and Healing, A Path to Oneness. And that 13-month study group will culminate in this pilgrimage. The other study group I wanted to mention, which Sevn was so great at inviting Renata, by the way, today is Renata Moritz's 86th birthday. She lives in Germany, was a major part of Don's study groups in London for many years. Renata wanted to study Don's intuitions, and it took us 12 years, the Beads Foundation, 12 years to actually bring that into fruition. There was so much to do. And for the last, I think, 8 months now, we meet monthly, and Renata will send out one of Don's intuitions, and then we'll discuss it using a method she calls the question ladder, which is a method of coming to your questions through experience. And it's a beautiful method. We stay out of our heads and share in an intimate and very satisfying way through her teaching us and helping us. She's created this. I know the question ladder is used in a corporate sense. She had never heard of that before, which is typical of Renata, to have a unique way of seeing things in life. Anyway, those two study groups have been so valuable to me, as
Thank you,
well as
Linda.
so many other activities. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much for that. Yeah, you've enlarged my perspective today. And you mentioned the Ireland pilgrimage. I wonder, Marnie and Sevn, and I haven't forgotten you, Betty. I wonder if Marnie and Sevn maybe want to give the group a brief description of that.
Sure, I'd be glad to do that. Yes, it's coming up. It's going to be May 26th to the 31st. It is open for anyone who wants to participate in this. The focus, the way this whole thing came about was at one of our board meetings. This was, I think, 2 years ago, that we realized there's so much conflict in the world. So how do we deal with that? How do we deal with it personally as well as generally? So out of that came the idea that we wanted to study this theme of conflict. How do we find forgiveness of self or other? How do we heal? And then can that lead to a feeling of connection and oneness? So this Ireland pilgrimage we are offering in Northern Ireland, and we're going to be at a community called the Coromila community. It was established by a man who was a prisoner of war in Germany during the Dresden bombing. And when he saw the devastation, he just realized that there has to be another way. So when he went home back to Northern Ireland, he dedicated himself to figuring out how to bring people together, to have the difficult conversation, and to try to resolve their differences or live with their differences. And during the Troubles, the Coromila community became a very important part of helping the country. So the fellow, we have these 4 days, and we have an Irishman named Sean O'Beal, who is a certified trainer in conflict resolution, but he is also much more than that. He's a poet, a storyteller, an actor. He's this wonderful man, and he's going to be facilitating our 4 days. So we will have actual experiential workshop inside. We will go, he's going to take us into nature and some of the natural spaces in Northern Ireland. One of them is the Giant's Causeway, which apparently is a phenomenal place. I've never been to Ireland, so this will all be new to me. And then we're going to go on a pilgrimage to visit spiritual sites in Northern Ireland, St. Patrick's burial site, the St. Patrick Down, which is devoted to him. The idea being that through these experiences, we will address our own feelings of conflict, and that we will see how it has, other people have addressed and come to terms with healing and finding harmony and connection. So it promises to be a unique and very exciting time, I think.
So Marnie, if somebody's interested in doing that, what would you advise them to do?
Go to our Beads on One String website. It's beadsononestring.org. Go to the events headline. Go to what we do, then go to the events headline, and then you'll see the first thing that comes up is the Ireland event.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, Betty, over to you.
Hey, Baba, dear Marnie, Linda. Dear old friends. It's funny. I was talking to Hassan before this meeting, trying to explain to him and others who were there just what beads on string is. And I thought, well, after this meeting, I'll know better. And by golly, I don't. I cannot put my finger on what. There are just so many facets to this group. I guess I just take it down to my little personal life. I know for years in a little small town in Oregon, I joined the small conservative Quaker church in the town, and that was it was expanding the envelope, and I think that's really what all of us are doing in our way. So that I just wanted to say that I'm amazed at this incredible array of things that you all are coming up with. There are many ways God's world is wide. That's all.
Thank you, Betty.
Betty.
Hey, Baba. All right. Anybody else want to make a comment? Oh, Buzz and Ginger.
Can you hear us okay?
Hear you fine.
Okay, we want to thank you so much. Uh-oh, did I lose you?
No, we can hear you. We just
Okay,
can't see
okay.
you.
So I just felt like we've made some new loving connections. It just touches my heart. And speaking of connections, I want to go do a little history. Don Stevens, Lud Dimple, and my dad all worked for the oil industry in Richmond, California.
Wow.
And so there was that connection. Also a connection that my dad's auntie lived next door to the Dimples. And when Lud got back from 3 incredible weeks, naturally he shared everything with his kids. And 3B was telling everybody about Baba. And I happened to be there and she told me about Baba. I was 7. And later, just the day before Led passed away, he had called me and said to come and spend a little time with him. So we were talking about the whole connection business. And I said, Led, what difference, what good is that? I don't remember anything. And he said, it doesn't matter what you remember. He said, Baba has been with you since that day.
Mm.
Oh,
And anyway, so we wanted to share that, and we're happy to know you all. Some new faces for us, and
Old
loving,
faces.
and some old faces too. Hi, Betty, and and we want to thank you again and say Jai Meher Baba.
Mm.
oh,
Baba.
thank you. But those are amazing
Mm.
connections, aren't they?
Oh
Baba
my
threads
God!
his way into every dimension of life. And I'm always amazed to hear the next story about how he's maneuvered and engineered everything to make those
I
things
know.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you, Buzz. That was great. And let's see, Marion, you'd like to say something.
Yes, thank you. I hadn't planned on saying anything, but I will because I'm so inspired by this group. I live in New York City. We don't have Mayor Baba meetings anymore. After COVID, we lost all of our meeting space. So this is a very strange evolution of our organization here because we all have to go on Zoom mainly to connect. So very strange, but part of the evolution, I suppose. I just want to drop one thing in that I am focusing on here, and that is the I call it the science of reincarnation because it's not accepted as a science in our society yet. It's slowly edging in, but I just wanted to mention that because connecting here today is very inspiring, and I am finding little ways to bring this in as a science, especially to the LGBTQ community. And in my senior center, it's intergenerational. So we just had a Zoom meeting just this week with young people who are trans and transgender and gay and so forth, and adults of all the spectrum of sexuality. And so this is so needed in our society of bringing it in as a science, not as trying to make everybody feel welcome when they don't feel welcome in our society. So I just want to kind of drop that in as far as our community, and that is one of my focuses, and I feel very guided to do that and bring that in. So
Great. Thank you so much for bringing that into our group today, Marion. All the way from New York City. Good for you. Yeah. All right. Well, we're kind of coming to a closing here.
Alta has her hand
Oh,
up.
wait, Alta. Alta? Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to suggest, Marnie and Sevn, that you do conflict work here in the United States. If you can figure out how to do that, it's critically needed for sure.
Seriously, yes. Yes.
And
Thank
and
you.
then the other thing is for those of you who are part of the Beads on One String pilgrimages, it's great to see your faces again. And I thank you, Sevn, and Marnie and Edie and everybody and Evie, everybody involved in doing this. It's been great. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. So Alta, you were involved in some of those pilgrimages?
Yes, the 2009 pilgrimage.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you for mentioning that. Wow.
Well, and then Alta did her own pilgrimage in Louisville. Didn't you, Alta? What year
Yes,
was
that was in 2012.
Yeah.
Conflict work will be very, very accepted here in the Middle East. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in
Conflict.
closing, I think I would like to say my own personal perspective on pilgrimages, that you can do it from your living room sofa, or you can travel across the world, or you can do it in your neighborhood. That we're not, if we're not able to travel, we're not necessarily restricted by our geographic boundaries, because we can connect in these ways. I think we've seen that today. And, you know, in closing too, as we each reflect on our personal lives, and taking Irma's little hint, how can we jump off the cliff to make our life with Baba very much alive? And if we had 3 more hours, I'm sure we'd hear a huge variety of possibilities. So I'd like to leave us all with that thought about how do we carry this forward in our own hearts and keep ourselves available for connecting. And I want to thank Marnie and Sevn so much for offering this to our group. We have an international group today, I'll just mention, stretching across the world. And okay, heavily weighted here in Asheville, just to say, but still. We're scattered and connected at the same time. So Marnie and Sevn, any closing thoughts from you?
Well, thank you. This has been a wonderful opportunity because I feel like the Beads on One String has been kind of doing its work, but not really letting people know as well as we might. So this has been a wonderful opportunity to share with people. I really appreciate it so much. And I appreciate all the ideas that have been generated today. I've made a list and we'll definitely get to work on it. So thank you.
You're going to be busy, Marnie.
No, it's funny because I was just asking Baba not long ago, this has been a big deal doing the Ireland event. And I was thinking, okay, Baba, what are we going to do next? I'm not really coming up with something. Well, I've got a list.
You do. We're going to hold you to it. Sevn, how about you?
Yeah, same. Thank you. It's been nice connecting with you all. It's fun seeing just some faces on the Zoom here of people that we've traveled some long treks with. And yeah, it's really helpful to hear some of the feedback. Especially hearing the theme of conflict is one of the things I'm taking back from feedback, which is actually interesting because one of the board members, Cynthia Griffin, is a a therapist, and she's been doing a lot of work writing up different approaches to conflict resolution as well. So I'm hearing that as probably will be a theme for some events over the next couple of years, at least. So, but yeah, it's good seeing you all, J Baba.
All right. So suppose we, in closing, just say the beloved God prayer. Would you all like to do that? And unmute yourself so we can hear each other in community. Everybody's invited to unmute if you'd like to. Okay. Beloved God, help us all love you
And
more.
love
More
and more
and
more and still yet
Till we become
until we become
one
worthy of union with
with
you.
you.
And help us all
Help us
to
all
hold
to hold
fast
fast till
till
the
the
very
very
end.
day.
TJ.
Avatar, Meher Baba.
Baba, TJ.